Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And once again, it's my pleasure to welcome back Mark Lyons and Scott Ambler. Mark and Scott are the co-creators of Disciplined Agile and the absolute thought leaders in this space. So with that, I'll kick it over. If both Scott, you and Mark, if you guys can just do a brief little intro of yourselves, we'll get into it.
Scott, after you.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm Scott Ambler. Along with Mark, I'm one of the co-creators of the Disciplined Agile Toolkit, and happy to be here. So, thanks for having us back.
Yeah, and I also one of the co-creators with Scott of Disciplined Agile, and we're just thrilled to be with you here today. And thanks for attending, because I know that we're competing with something else going on right now in the U.S. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, and our topic today is just a general discussion on I guess all things DA, and we are getting more and more requests for questions coming in prior to the webinar. So one of the ones that I actually got a couple of questions on was if both of you can cover just a little bit of your backgrounds and what led to Disciplined Agile being created, and just a little bit of where all of this started from, and then we'll get into the other part of where is it possibly going.
That's a great question. Maybe I'll start and give a bit of my background and how I got into this space and got to know Scott. And then maybe Scott, I'll pass the baton on to him, and he can tell you how this whole journey got started. My background goes, I started as a developer a long time ago. And I went through, being a developer, and then back in the day, you got promoted by becoming an analyst, and that got you more money. And right away, I'm not coding, so I'm not really very happy because I love to code. And then I got to get more money and get promoted. I became a project manager doing traditional project management, and I was miserable. To be honest with you, updating Microsoft project every day, and it was brutal. And I was so far away from what I really enjoyed doing. I actually almost left IT at one point because I was really not having any fun. And it was during that time I discovered what was back in the day called iterative development, and moved into that, started building stuff in terms of, and by the way, back in the day, delivering something once a month was considered to be quite an accomplishment. I found my way into the Rational Unified Process. Rational hired me, if you've heard of Rational Software. And in my role at Rational Software, I would teach quote unquote best practices in the area of agile project management, requirements management, object-oriented analysis and design, all sorts of things around all best sort of disciplines of modern agile software development. And that training really served me well. And then you may know that Rational Software was bought by IBM. Stayed with IBM for a little bit, and then moved off into consulting. So that's how I got to be sort of an expert in the process space. And along that journey, Scott and I crossed paths many times at conferences and things. And I actually continued to work with IBM on an advisory council regarding methods and evolution of IBM's methods. And I think that's where I started to get to know Scott a bit better. So Scott, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. So I started working in Agile probably in the late '90s. Before Agile, was a term and all that good sort of stuff. But and I was heavily, just like Mark, I was heavily into RUP and UML and good things like that. And before that, I was also heavily into the CMM and trying to make these heavy processes work, and it just didn't. So it was a bit of a mess, but great ideas, but wasn't really getting the job done. So what happened was, and then in 2001, when the manifesto was published, it really spoke to me, and I instantly jumped into that sort of thinking in that space. And I'd already been doing it. My work in modeling, which then evolved into what became Agile modeling, reflected all this lightweight and just crazy ideas at the time. Like, we really, started the entire movement around, making it viable to do whiteboard modeling and post-it notes and like all these really weird techniques, which were absolutely crazy at the time. And because we all knew we had to have these expensive tools that all the vendors wanted to sell. So, I led the development of Agile modeling, then Agile data, but started once again thinking about the bigger picture, which eventually evolved into the enterprise unified process. But then when I joined IBM, I was in the role of chief methodologist for IT. And I was helping organize myself, my team, and partners like Mark and Joshua's organization at the time. We were going around the world helping organizations to understand this Agile stuff, to apply it at scale, and apply it in a wide range of situations. And that was when we started writing up what became Disciplined Agile Delivery. So we had workshops around it. We were teaching people this stuff. And then Mark and I decided to write what became the Disciplined Agile Delivery book, which was published in 2012. And it was at that point that I left IBM, Mark and I formed, and Louise Lyons formed, at the time, Scott Ambler and Associates, which eventually evolved into Disciplined Agile Inc., where we were going around the world doing the same sort of thing, helping organizations to apply and scale Agile and to apply it in a very wide range of situations, and to not only tactically scale it, but also strategically scale it across the enterprise. So how do other business groups address, work in an Agile manner? How do you do it in finance and marketing and all these other areas? And then in 2019, the Project Management Institute, PMI, purchased the Disciplined Agile organization, and shortly thereafter purchased Al Shalloway's organization at Objectives as well. And then we've been working together since to bring the Disciplined Agile toolkit to market and bring it to PMI membership and others.
Yeah. Mark, one of the things that you had said was that, long ago when you were able to do iterative development and deliver, at least, on a monthly basis, was a big deal. I would say it's still a big deal for a lot of organizations these days, right? I mean, there are a lot of organizations that we're seeing increased, awareness and interest in Disciplined Agile, and moving still from a very long release cycle, and trying to understand a little bit more about what it would take to achieve business agility, and what it means to them and so forth. So yeah, I think it's still a big deal.
Yeah, it shouldn't you shouldn't have to deliver a release once a month. It's funny that some frameworks actually are structured around delivering once a quarter. So in some ways, I think when we start to scale, maybe the industry's gone a bit backwards. But there's no real excuse technically for not being able to deliver something of high quality, frankly, every day. Right. So that, Scott and I sometimes talk about, DevOps and continuous integration, continuous deployment as being kind of stable, table stakes. That's, those are proven technologies, not hard to do. That's not what gets us in the way of agility. It's working with the other supporting groups that actually may impede us from actually being able to deliver, not only build, but deliver on a frequent basis. And this is what we try to do with Disciplined Agile, is tear down those impediments to, real enterprise agility.
So, with a bit of the history, a bit of the background, and knowing what happened with, the unified process and some of the other things that obviously are a bit of the history of Disciplined Agile, what are some of the things that are, if we look a little bit more forward in the future, right, from an innovation standpoint, what are some of the things that will be of great interest to, to customers and practitioners? What's coming?
Scott, you or me?
Yeah, well, both. I'll take it first. So yes, as you know, we're doing a lot of great work around describing value streams, and Al Shalloway has been leading this up for us with the integration of Flex into the DA toolkit. So we're doing a lot of great stuff there. We're just about to bring out a certification called the Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consultant that can help organizations to truly implement value streams, and also to start applying agility in other aspects of the organization. So there's a lot of great stuff coming out very soon around that. We are also doing some great stuff. We're making actually innovative strategies to be more explicit. They've always been in there. Like, I've got a background in UX, and we just sort of embedded UX thinking and design thinking into the toolkit. And now we're making it a lot more explicit. Because of I think the market is sort of caught up now and realizes that customer experience and user experience, whatever you want to call that, and design thinking is absolutely critical to your success. So we need to make it even more blatantly obvious, that this is really where we've been coming from. And of course, flow and lean has also been embedded in the toolkit, from the very beginning as well. So I think it's more about, fleshing, a lot of the innovations we're doing, a lot of the work we're doing is around fleshing things out and making it explicit and making the toolkit more consumable for people.
Awesome. Sure. And I'll build on that. One of the real exciting aspects of being part of PMI is that now we have the resources and a global organization that can really help us sort of achieve our vision around DA, which is to provide guidance in all aspects of agility across the organization, far beyond IT. And what's really exciting for us is that the thought leadership is no longer Mark and Scott. We are building a very robust, I think, frankly, without peer in the world, team of thought leaders. Al Shalloway joining our group, and there are others that so what you're going to see is an acceleration of the development of IP in all areas. For instance, our vision has always been agility across the enterprise. If you look at the scope of DA and what we call the square onion, I'll be the first to admit we don't have, frankly, any content around Agile for legal. I'm not a lawyer, but we will be working with partnerships with associations and experts in these fields around the world. We've already started it, and we're going to be adding content in all the process blades, and that's going to happen very quickly. So the great news for all of you is that, if there's one area of your organization that's kind of slowing you down, you'll be able to point to a place in the DA body of knowledge where you can say, hey, you know what, why don't you take this little course on Agile for marketing, and you might find it actually makes your job more enjoyable, and it'll improve our overall agility. So that's what's coming. We're working on some micro certifications to expand the scope, to provide some real, in-depth content in all the process blades.
Oh, awesome. Taking a look at some of the questions that are coming in, one of them is on training. So Navin asks, with so many different Agile courses and institutes offering various Agile courses, it's become very confusing which one to do and why, having said, when to use DA versus SAFe, usual, Agile. So what kind of thoughts can you provide in Navin?
Yep, maybe I'll start. I think it's important for everyone to recognize that people often ask us who competes with Disciplined Agile. The frank answer is nobody, because nobody has gone and read the 100 books and pulled together all the practices out there and organized them into essentially like a Wikipedia for Agile. Well-organized reference to practices in all areas, requirements, testing, estimating, you name it, into one resource. And then if you want to find out more information about user stories, as Joshua and I were just talking about this, you go off to Mike Cohen's guidance, where you can take a deep dive on how to write really good user stories. That's not what DA does, but it is the only comprehensive, as I say, reference to the practices commonly used in Agile around the world. So that that's one thing I would say. Anything you want to add to that, Scott?
Yeah, definitely a couple of things. So one of the things we like to say is that you start where you are. So if you're so DA isn't trying to compete against SAFe or Less or Nexus or whatever else, Scrum, whatever else you're doing. Instead, we extend those great frameworks, those great methods. So you start where they are. If you're currently doing SAFe, we can show you how to improve and to do things to improve your current SAFe implementation that the SAFe folks might never tell you about, or Scrum or Less or whatever else. So improve in place, and then find, because what you really want to do is get to the point where you're a learning organization, where you can innovate yourself, where you have learned how to learn and to experiment and to improve your own process. This is exactly what the Amazons, the eBays, and the Googles of the world do. They improve. They're in continuous improvement mode, and they're not adopting frameworks. Why would they, right? So they want to be more effective than that. So they're a learning organization. So DA helps you to become a learning organization, and gives you guidance and helps you to leverage the learnings of others. So this is the type of things that we are teaching in the various Disciplined Agile workshops and e-learning offerings and good stuff like that. And we've been innovating around, as have other people too, but we've been innovating around the way that we deliver these materials. We work with partners such as Josh's company, and then enable them to innovate as well and put them in a position. Well, actually, Josh, you could probably speak better to that than I can. What type of innovations are you folks doing to bring this, the DA training to the marketplace?
Yeah, we thanks for asking. We have a lot of things that we've been working on. Just a few of them is we're starting to do more on-demand training courses, and we're using that as a way to provide both just pure on-demand, right, video recorded of the instructors going through the material, as well as blended learning offerings. So we've got offerings where you can go through and take some of the available learning options that you might have, and we combine that with some of our on-demand training, plus supplement it with in-person opportunities like instructors' office hours, similar like you'd have at a university. So we have blended learning offerings. And one of the other things that is a really big step for us as part of our engagement model when we help organizations, and we produce a transformation roadmap for them. Our approach to training and coaching in the practice space, like Mark just mentioned, if you want to know about user stories, you might need to go and take a course in user stories. We do training just in time. So we might have a 40-minute, training session we're going to do for user stories, and then we're going to coach the team to actually start identifying and writing user stories, or how to do release planning, or how to do whatever practice it is. So kind of the doing your way of working. We're creating all of those micro trainings in an on-demand format as well, so that teams can access them, brings quality, consistency to both teams and organizations. And so we have a new offering coming out on taking all of those modules, those micro modules that we deliver in person, and making them on demand. And lots of, we've been collaborating on a exam simulator. So within the next probably 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to have a very comprehensive exam simulator that'll also be part of all of our training offerings. Our students will get access to that for free as a value add. So lots of stuff in that space.
And if I could just add to what Joshua said, one of the things I neglected to talk about when I talked about my journey to DA is that Josh and I go way back as well. In fact, when I talked about the IBM advisory council for methods, Josh was on that council, and that's where he and I got to know each other. And in fact, some of you may know, we actually operated independent consulting companies under the same name, Unified Process Mentors, also known as UP Mentors, with another gentleman in the UK named Julian Holmes, who was also on that advisory council. So the three amigos, if you will. So we go back a long way, and Joshua knows his stuff. I also wanted to, back to the question on, why DA versus less training or safe training or whatever. Those kinds of certifications and trainings teach you about one particular method. And all of those methods have a particular perspective on how to do Agile. And it's sort of like use our way is best kind of a thing. And then you're encouraged basically to just follow often prescriptive advice from those particular methods. So for a consultant, it's really difficult to stay current, because you end up having to take a dozen different workshops, a dozen different certifications to remain current, and remembering that each one of these methods have their own biases. If you look at DA, because we're agnostic, because we're pragmatic, we draw the practices from those methods. And then, if you want to use SAFe or less or Scrum or Lean as a starting point, you can. but we're not going to tell you don't do anything different because then it's not safe or less or whatever it is. So we provide more flexibility to grow, and combine that with a guided continuous improvement approach that we use. You can then be like a Spotify and evolve to a method that makes sense for you and your organization, not that some consultant who's certified in a particular framework says that it's the way you should be doing Agile. So we like to think that, and by the way, so all of those different methods, we provide those things out of the box. We provide a set of life cycles. So you can start with a Scrum-based life cycle or start with a Lean-based life cycle, and then grow from there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out too, and it's not just about being agile and lean, which is obviously a good thing, but we also capture traditional techniques as well, because once again, it really is all about, can you be the best in the situation that you face? Do the best you can in the situation you face, and always strive to get better. And what happens, and sometimes a more traditional strategy is the most effective you can be in that situation, and fair enough. We also, probably more importantly, we put everything into context. So that way you can make better decisions and you can have better discussions as to whether or not a strategy makes sense. I'm sure that many of you run into situations where your organization is currently doing something and you would really like to do something better than that. But you're told, well, that's the way it has to be. And you might not, so for example, around budgeting, how do we finance an agile team, for example? There's many different ways we can do that. And you might be following a technique right now that's not very good. But you're told that's the way we've got to do it because of whatever reason. And with the toolkit, you can at least understand, well, what are the trade-offs of these various options, and have a more intelligent conversation. And more importantly, point these people to, well, wait a minute, do you realize that there's this other strategy here that works better than what you're talking about, still addresses the same basic risks that you're talking about? Maybe we should experiment with it and see if it works for us. So you can have a much greater chance of choosing techniques that will be successful when you run these experiments. So you end up improving faster, and you can often break the road jam that you're facing, because people just if you can't coherently explain why this strategy you want to experiment with is better, you're going to be told no in many situations. And I hear this all the time from people, and they have got no idea how to push back. And it's because they're not knowledgeable enough to do so. And the toolkit can help you do that.
So Jacques asks, understanding a bit of DA's background and industries that some of the case studies are from, what are some of the industries that you are now seeing DA interest in?
Lots of industries. DA has always been really popular in financial insurance, banks, where they have the regulatory environments. Often they use things like ITIL or something to control release of software into production. So definitely that continues. We continue to see tremendous interest in the financial areas, but it's really hard to nail down the other areas, because we're hearing for all different kinds of companies that are interested in doing DA. Because frankly, most organizations now realize that IT is often the center of their competitive advantage. So regardless of what type of industry you're in, you got to get really good at delivering IT solutions and value. So I don't know, Scott, are you seeing particular industries besides the financial one?
And it's certainly not just IT. We're seeing petrochemical organizations looking at DA. We're seeing Mark's worked, one of our case studies is around a pizza organization, I believe, or food delivery, food company, whatever you want to call it, restaurant chain.
Wait, weren't they an IT company that just happened to make and deliver pizzas?
Yeah. So that's exactly it, right? So these software, this pizza company believes their business is pizza, but in many ways they're really a software company that just happens to make money right now selling pizza.
If I could interrupt, I know where Joshua is coming from, because I said this in the past. The COO, who's responsible for bringing in DA and us to help them out with it, I was there in a town hall where he told everybody that they are a digital company first. And, oh, by the way, we sell pizza. So that, I mean, Josh is referring to kind of a joke, but the value stream starts with their mobile apps. And if that isn't beautiful and effective, nobody's going to order pizza. So it doesn't matter how good a pizza you make. If the orders aren't coming in, you're not going to beat the competition. So yeah, Josh jokes, but they take IT extremely seriously, and not just IT, agile in all the areas, as Scott says.
Yeah. And, for example, I know, Josh, you've worked at a beverage company in the past, bringing DA in. And so, yeah, it really, there really isn't an industry where we haven't seen the opportunity to apply agile and lean techniques to improve them. Even in physical construction, we're seeing some good stuff around the lean construction movement, for example. So, I don't know if we've had it on this series of calls, but here in Toronto, a couple of years ago, a local organization built a hospital using an agile strategy. So mission critical, life critical, mission critical stuff, dealing with laws of physics, regulations up the wazoo, and they were still able to apply very agile strategies in order to build the hospital. And it was a hybrid approach, but they were pretty smart about that and very innovative. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity for just open your mind up. And even if you believe you're not a software company or not an IT company, there's still, like we were talking about earlier, we're seeing people apply DA in vendor management, in finance, in other areas so even if you're like a hardcore house building construction company and you truly believe that's what your business line was, you still got all these other ancillary aspects of your business that could still be reasonably agile as well.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of, or more, I should say, maybe more of, is that most of the time, especially larger companies. I mean, moving towards trying to get to business agility, it comes out of IT. I mean, most of the time that's where it's going to start. But we're seeing interest now with some of the awareness in DA. It's like, oh, well, if we're working in one of these corporate functional support areas, we're working in marketing, or we're working in, again, vendor management or procurement or whatever, how can we take an agile way of working, right? So we're seeing more non-software types of requests for consulting services to help other areas of the organization that's now interested in it, which then sometimes gets us back into the IT area where they've already adopted a particular framework or something else that could use a little bit of an agility health check, see where they might be able to do things a little bit differently or better, right? Optimize a little bit. So we've got lots of questions. So what I'd like to do, since we've got an hour for this one, or we have up to an hour, right? We'll go until maybe questions or the topics go down, but there's a lot in here. So why don't we do a little bit of like the equivalent of that lightning round, right? So we can answer a lot of these questions. So I'm going to start off with Enrique. Enrique asks, is it recommended that somebody that has no Agile experience but has knowledge takes the Disciplined Agile Scrum Master course?
Yes. Next.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's the introductory course. That's the one to go to.
The Disciplined Agile, I'm sorry. Oh, I misread his question. A Disciplined Agile Senior Scrum Master course. Sorry. I saw DASSM and read it as DASM.
Yeah, different answers.
Yeah.
No. You got to have experience. We expect you to come in pretty solid Agile experience before you go into the Senior Scrum Master cert. It's a seriously credible cert. It's challenging. You're going to be expected to know the DA toolkit very well. That is to say, the Choose Your Wow book. So I would recommend that you start with the DASM if you're fairly new in your Agile journey.
Yeah. Marcelo asks, what do you think DA champions should be doing different in the different chapters around the world? Any guidance or suggestions?
Great question. I'll field this one as well. So we now have a dedicated DA product manager, which is wonderful for all of us here, is that who's focused on these kinds of things. And one of the things is better two-way feedback, insight groups with you all, whether it's instructors, partners, practitioners, so that you can provide us feedback on what's working, what's not working, and how we can improve the overall program. Champions is another venue. Is that we recognize we have something like 280 champions around in chapters around the world, DA champions, I should say. And what we're about to start is an insight group with the champions to help them understand how they can help to promote DA locally in the chapters via educational events, sponsoring local courses, those kinds of things. So if you're a champion, stand by. We'll be reaching out to you shortly as we put that group together in the next month or so.
And right now, there are slide decks and recordings available to you, so you can run events at your chapters. Do a 10 or 15-minute overview of a certain aspect of DA, and then reach out to us as well for ideas. But like Mark said, we're just about to get some forums set up so that way we can start sharing ideas amongst all of the champions, and let everybody leverage ideas from each other.
Yeah, and I'll say, we've been contacted by a number of chapter champions to do, webinars or to co-deliver a webinar with them. So either, feel free to reach out to us. We love helping to build the community, or reach out to somebody that has some existing, expertise in the Disciplined Agile toolkit to help you, champion DA in your chapter. Okay, so Steve asks, is there a role in potentially education and certification for Disciplined Agile DevOps and enterprise specialists?
No, I'll pass it. There isn't. I'll pass it over to Scott if you've got any plans around DevOps cert, Scott.
At the present moment, no. Certainly, Disciplined DevOps is one of the 4 layers of the DA toolkit, and it's an important one. Like Mark was saying earlier, we consider Disciplined DevOps to be table stakes for most organizations. It's a good idea to, we have been bouncing around the idea of some sort of DevOps certification, but it hasn't hit the top of our work stack yet.
We may start with micro certs, like small learning modules. For instance, we've got some pretty robust knowledge around the security blade. It wouldn't take much to take that and turn it into a 3-hour on-demand micro certification.
Yeah.
Shiva asks, and Shiva is from Calgary, what influences DA to be called a toolkit?
That is a great question. So for years, Scott and I, pre-PMI, we're trying to figure out how to properly describe DA. And it, in its essence, essentially, it is a toolkit full of strategies. And every day you face making process decisions. If you're forming a team, what's the size of the team? What skills do they have? Are they co-located or distributed? There's just there's decision after decision. Just in a simple thing about forming a team. In architecture, what does my technical solution look like? How am I going to do governance? How am I going to do testing, automated or manual? Decision. You make hundreds and hundreds of decisions throughout a project. And so we considered this to be a process decision, a framework for helping you to make those decisions. So we referred to it as a process decision framework for many years. But you know what? People don't like process, especially the Agilists. Process seems to be a dirty word.
Yep.
And framework these days does not seem to be resonating with people. So two out of the 3 of the words that we used really weren't hitting the mark. So we stepped back for a second and said, maybe there's a better term, and we think toolkit is actually a better term. Too bad we didn't figure that out a long time ago. But it's a toolkit of strategies with context-based advice so that you can pick the ones that make sense for you in your situation. Anything to add, Scott?
And we're purposely using a different term than framework because DA is different. Where the frameworks tend to tell you here's what to do, in DA we instead take a slightly more sophisticated approach. We say here's what you need to think about, here are some options, and here's how to choose between them. You choose you do the best that you can in the situation you face, and always try to get better. So it's a much more robust and yes, a little more sophisticated approach, but it has longer legs, right? You don't end up in method jail or framework jail, whatever you want to call that, with DA.
Yeah. And I would also add, if I could, I know this is lightning round, but so I'll try to get off this as quickly as possible. But if you look at the companies that you either respect or fear, like Google's, Netflix, Amazon's, the FANG stocks, do you think that they use a framework, or have they, rolled up their sleeves and said, what do we need to do to be agile? The Spotify's of the world. We're helping you to become a Spotify. That's what the toolkit can help you do, without hiring like a super expensive coach to figure it out for you.
Yeah.
Coaches is good. You want coaching. You absolutely need coaching, but stepping up and learning about the techniques yourself is probably is important too.
Yeah.
So Gail asks, what are the future plans for the expansion of Disciplined Agile DevOps processes and how they fit into the picture?
I think we answered that.
Yeah, we have a lot of material around that already. We don't have a certification around it though, but it is more an issue of publication at the present moment than it is around lack of material. We've got some great courseware actually where we captured a lot of the IP, unfortunately. But we are in the process of publishing to PMI.org on a daily basis, basically. So we're getting there.
David asks, I really like the entire context choice aspect of Disciplined Agile, but I am noticing that we are having trouble doing good analysis of context. Any guidance on how to drive a solid set of practices, tips on doing the context analysis?
I'll start. You can look to our guidance from Guided Continuous Improvement. And at some point, any good team is going to have retrospectives, is going to reflect on what's working and what's not. Essentially, you're examining your own context. You're saying, why aren't we being as effective as we should? And then you can go to the toolkit and find strategies that can actually help you get better in your context. So what would you add, Scott?
Yeah, this is a heck of a coincidence because just yesterday I blogged about an update that we had recently done to the situation context framework. So if you go to projectmanagement.com and search for situation context framework, we have a bit of IP there around understanding the context that you're in, and we talk about different scaling factors and different selection factors as well. So just start there, and then hopefully that should give you some insight into judging where you are.
Yeah, I think I saw when I was poking around, it went from 6 tactical scaling factors. It looks like a 7th one has been added.
Yeah, the 7th one is skills availability. So how easy is it for you to find people with the skills that you need to get the job done, or to help them gain the skills if they don't currently have them?
And the implication there is that if you are small and you don't have a lot of in-house expertise, then you may need to depend on a vendor. And when you depend on a vendor, that jacks up the complexity and introduces a whole bunch of things that you need to think about if you're going to be agile in that situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, Vicky asks, I attended a webinar yesterday on the Biz Ops Manifesto. The panel was passionate about their journey. Did you all take part in any discussions with the Biz Ops folks?
Yeah, been there, done that. So biz DevOps or Biz Ops, whatever they want to call it this week, and literally this week, has been a part of the overall Disciplined DevOps strategy for a long, long time. So if you go to PMI.org and just search on DevOps or Disciplined DevOps will get you there on the first hit. But there's a really solid overview of what Disciplined DevOps is all about, and we show how you bring in DevSecOps, Data DevOps, Biz DevOps. Bring in release management across hundreds or thousands of teams, bring in support and operations across hundreds or thousands of systems. And we show how it all fits together. And I truly believe we still are really the only toolkit or framework that are really dealing with the full picture of DevOps. So the fact that they're talking about Biz DevOps, yeah, great, good for them. But that's only part of the overall picture. Very important, but it's only part of the overall picture. And if you don't have the rest of the picture, you're still not operating on all cylinders.
I think that's a really good point, is that the other certification bodies and thought leaders, by the way, are experts in their particular niche. Nobody has the overall scope that DA has. Yeah.
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 Okay, so I got a little reminder that it's the lightning round and we have a lot of
Okay.
questions and
Yeah.
not a lot of
Okay.
time left. All right, so Henry asks, what's the difference between the DASM, DASSM, and the CSM from Scrum Alliance?
You're me, Scott.
Oh, go ahead.
CSM is based on a 13-page body of knowledge now, the Scrum Guide. Our Scrum Master certs go well beyond Scrum. They include Lean, what the toolkit is, how to reference it. That's the Scrum Master. The Senior Scrum Master introduces leadership topics, coaching topics, and how to do Scrum in complex situations, maybe dealing with sets of Scrum teams. Really, the Scrum certs it's like Scrum++. It's a much more comprehensive Scrum certification than a CSM by far.
Yeah, I'm going to pile on one small thing on top of that, just as having delivered a lot of those courses now a fair amount of times, is that, the Scrum framework has one approach, one life cycle. Come to like the DASM course, and you're going to learn about 6 project level life cycles, right? We often, add in a little bit on flex, but I mean, there's so many other things that you'll learn in comparison to, again, just a CSM, a PSM, and an essay course. I mean, I'll have good content, but it's quite a bit different with with the SM and SSM. Okay, let's see. On top of this, Tanvir asks how to find out which Agile certification is appropriate for someone. It is so much confusing and hard to correlate to each other.
Okay, that's good feedback. We're trying to simplify it. We came up with a diagram that some people are calling the molecule diagram to show
not the virus diagram. It's the molecule.
The what? Not the
what?
what?
Virus.
The virus. There's not a virus diagram, please. And good feedback that we've heard from other people is it doesn't adequately depict a journey. Where do you come onto? I've also called it a Ferris wheel. And where do you jump onto the Ferris wheel? So we are taking another look at that graphic. Certainly going to minimal supplement it to make it really, really clear where you are, where you should start. If you look at the molecule diagram, though, you will see what the prerequisites are for each of the things. If you're new to Agile, Scrum Master. If you have Agile experience, Senior Scrum Master. If you're an ACP, Senior Scrum Master. Good feedback.
And Mark, right there, I do want to, we've got 3 or 4 questions alone on I'm an ACP, where do I start, or where's my transition path? And you just kind of mentioned it. So if you can reinforce that one more time.
Okay, so the ACP is a great certification, definitely one of the most credible certifications in the industry, and just hasn't got the attention that it deserves. So anybody who has an ACP, congratulations. You should be proud of it. However, DA goes the next step. We expand the horizon. We've got the toolkit that you can reference. We talk about guided continuous improvement. So take your ACP and build on it and move over to the Senior Scrum Master is what we would recommend. The beautiful thing about the new Agile certification journey is it provides you another step up. You can go to Senior Scrum Master, you can go to the coach, you can go to the value stream consultants. You can always get better, take on more, have better skills, take on more responsibility, which provide better career opportunities for you. So there is a path from the ACP.
So in the chat, I just posted the link to the Agile certifications page on PMI.org. And if you go, and for those of you listening to the video, just drop by PMI.org, search on Agile certifications, and more than likely that'll be the first hit you get.
Mm-hmm. Tom asks, I like to get facts and data experiences telling me the qualities and cost effectiveness of Agile methods. Is there a link that can help me understand DA?
Well, there's 2 questions. There are links that can help you understand DA. I mean, go to PMI and to Disciplined-Agile at PMI, or just Google it. There are tons of YouTube videos, by the way, out there. There's a channel dedicated to DA. So tons of resources. And what was the second part of the question? Oh, data. Data is really hard to come by because data can be abused and misinterpreted. Nobody really has objective data about, despite what you hear from some of the frameworks out there, about performance improvements that you can expect from DA. I will say this one thing. You talk to look at the case studies. That's what I would ask you to do. Go to success stories on the PMI website and watch 3 videos. Mike Nettles, Karen Lewis, and Gary Eastwood, who were the sponsors of DA implementations in their organizations, and listen to them. The effectiveness of DA, I will tell you, is self-evident once you experience it. And that while they don't have data behind it, they would never go back. So yeah, self-evident.
Yeah, we had Karen actually. She did not only one of these webinars and talked quite a bit about their, their journey, and then she came back to one of the, the Ask Me Anythings and answered lots of questions on that. So yeah, there's some pretty solid data that's out there. Maybe not a lot, but what is there is pretty solid. Let's see. Corden asks, the current CDA designation change will be smoothly into DASM, which is a question, and if so, when?
Yeah, hopefully it's smooth. You should be getting an email very shortly telling you that your membership has been upgraded to DASM. No, nothing is required by you. Will be done by us. When? I think within a month. I don't know the exact date.
Soha asks, you mentioned some on-demand courses and maybe websites to be up to date. Can you share them, please?
Yeah, so the main site is pmi.org/disciplined agile with a hyphen between discipline and agile. So we've been actively updating that. We've been actively updating, to a lesser extent, projectmanagement.com as well. There's many blog postings there. But fundamentally, the prime site is pmi.org.
Yeah, and I'll do a plug as well that we're releasing an updated website on February 1st. So our Process Mentors website, and we'll have our on-demand courses in short time up on there, and the different offerings that we'll have. Let's see. Lynn asks, I see the DA mindset as being more management focused, broader, and geared towards more seasoned practitioners. Is there a plan, roadmap to align these with other PMI offerings or the micro certifications?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certainly, well, yeah. So certainly the micro certs will reflect the mindset and all the other material, the workshops and all that good sort of stuff. As far as aligning it with the rest of PMI, yeah, that's more of a longer term, or aligning the rest of PMI with the DA mindset might be another way of looking at it. But that's a longer term proposition. And keep in mind that PMI offers a full range, right? So we offer DA, but we also offer more traditional things as well. So one mindset to rule them all probably isn't going to happen. But certainly take a look at the DA mindset. And it's not just about management, by the way. It's really about enterprise agility and frankly, it's more about leadership than, far more about leadership than about management. And certainly the real issue is it's about enterprise agility.
Yeah. And really for team members, if there's a perception out there that this is directed towards management, absolutely there's stuff for management. But, the heart of DA is DAD, Disciplined Agile Delivery. That's where it all got started. How to create high performance teams. And that's what the Scrum Master certifications are all about.
Yeah. Stephen asks, what is the transformation process for organizations mired in Scrum or tailored prescriptive methodologies to Disciplined Agile? Is this to become a service from organizations like Process Mentors or specialization trained into the Disciplined Agile coach?
I'll start in that, because Scott, I'll talk about present, Scott will talk about future. If you want to learn about transformations and how we have successfully done it for literally a decade, every single time, successful referenceable case studies, every single time, then read our executive guide to Disciplined Agile. It's a short read, 200 pages. It really is an easy read. It'll give you an overview of how we have done transformations incrementally in organizations. Frankly, despite what you hear out there, it's not that hard if you follow the process. But that book is a few years old. So, and then we also want to incorporate the flex guidance. So we're working on, and some of this, by the way, will be in the Student Scrum Master, the DAC, and the Value Stream Consulting certifications cover this material. And Scott, maybe you want to just give a quick overview of some of the other transformation playbook kind of stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, definitely. So as Mark said, it's part of, transformation advice and how to coach and help to improve is part of the DASSM certification and training. It's it will be obviously part of the Disciplined Agile coach certification training, as well as the Disciplined Agile value chain consultant. And it's more an issue of scope. What is the scope of what you're trying to improve and help for each of those certification levels. So we help take you through an actual certification journey and a learning journey by doing that. And we're also bringing, and particularly part of the DAVSC training is the application of what we call playbooks. So for example, if you're a safe shop, how do when you adopt any given framework, it puts you into a certain situation. And because of that, there's like, say 20 potential plays to improve and to improve upon that framework. So we've been actively working on a safe playbook, but at the same time, we're also working on a Scrum playbook as well. So, when you tell me that you're doing Scrum, then I've got a pretty good idea what issues you're struggling with, because hundreds or thousands of other organizations also doing Scrum are also suffering from the same basic problems. So we can give you a common set of plays. Now, you're not going to apply all those plays, but you'll certainly apply a third, 2/3 of them, say, because you're still unique, right? So you're still going to be in whatever situation you're in. But we can safely say, hey, you're doing Scrum, chances are pretty good. You got these problems. Oh yeah, we do. Oh, well, here's the solution. Here's how to dig your way out of that hole. And that's the value of the DA toolkit, right? We're not telling you what to do. We're teaching how to improve.
Yeah, and one thing I'll kind of add on to that a little bit is when we deliver the training courses is instructors, right? Not trainers, but instructors, and we base a lot of what we bring to the delivery of that training based on all of the coaching work that we do. So one of the things, if you're out there looking for any of the training, take a look also not just at the times available or maybe a particular cost point. I mean, although they're all kind of similar these days. Is take a look at who's got experience in this, because what we try to do is if somebody comes into training and they've got a particular problem or they've got something that'll be of interest and a value add, what we do is we try and pull from our experience and say, here's how that may or may not work, right? Here's some of the options you should be considering, and here's the trade-offs of those options, or here's some of the things from a practical experience. So just that's another thing. We try and bring a lot of that into the training, as do other instructors, right? There's lots of instructors that have real practical experience that they're also able to supplement what they're covering, slide over slide, right? That's part of the real value that you get out of any training. So we are, really close on time. We've answered a lot of questions. We still have a lot to go, but next week, we've got Scott and Mark, and we also have Al Shalloway and Steve Tendon that are coming back for an Ask Me Anything. So what we'll do is we'll take some of these questions. Some of them we might be able to answer in between now and then. And if not, we'll start answering some of these questions in the Ask Me Anything. Before I get into our general announcements, I do have a couple that I want to mention in particular. So Mark is doing a talk on February 12th, the Agile Manifesto Futurespective 2020. That's with Giles Lindsay and Mark. Giles has also been on webinars in the past with us. He's quite an interesting fellow to listen to, so that'll be a good one to attend if you can. And Scott with Gail Ferreira from Silicon Valley Project, DA Optimizing Your Business Agility on February 2nd. And Gail happened to be a speaker also on a previous webinar. It looks like it's a small community right now. So those are some additional opportunities to hear what's going on. Yes, please post the webinars link. Yeah, we'll see if we can get those up before we log off. And before we do our final closing, let me go ahead and just cover a little bit about what we've got coming up. Oh, right. So if you have any additional questions, please come see us at processmentors.com. And again, to the question, at least for our on-demand training and some of our other offerings, we'll have a brand new site up on February 1st. This is one of the other things we've been promoting is just we do have a growing community. So there's a community forum, the All Things Disciplined Agile .com. The only thing you'll find on this site is a bunch of forums and sub forums for all sorts of questions, DA. If you're an instructor or coach, we've got forums that we're seeing lots of activity as far as sharing ideas, content, approaches to delivering materials. We have a lot of our upcoming training. We're doing not only our Agile and Lean practitioner boot camps, typically right before we do our DASMs, we're also delivering the DASSMs. We actually have one that Glenn Little and I are delivering actually tomorrow and Friday. So if you're interested, we still have probably some availability. And finally, the Ask Me Anything DA, right? The opportunity to not only have, again, Mark and Scott, but Steve Tendon and Al Shalloway. And that is just a whole giant opportunity to ask lots of questions and get the answers from really the thought leaders. So Mark, Scott, thanks again. And any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Okay, I'll start, and then I have to bolt. I have another meeting right after this. But I just want to say last year was an interesting year for us as we joined the PMI family and got to know each other and worked on integration and rolling out the new certification program. Tremendous amount of work going on behind the scenes. And I'm so excited about the thought leadership group that we've built now and the things that we have on the horizon. So it was kind of, the introduction of new products and things didn't go as fast as we would have liked, and there's some growing pains with partner programs and instructors and all that kind of stuff. But I want to assure you that most of that's behind us now. And, with all the other stuff that went on in 2020 was an interesting year, and we're really excited about 2021. So thanks for sticking with us, and stay tuned for lots of exciting announcements coming up.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll pile in on that. We've got a lot of great stuff coming out soon. The DAC, Disciplined Agile coach and Disciplined Agile value stream consultant. But as well, we teased you a bit with this concept of microcerts. So we'll soon be announcing that. And so we've got some very interesting work going on. And of course, we're doing some interesting stuff updating the website. So stay tuned for that as well. A lot of really neat things are about to happen.
Fantastic. Well, to both of you, thanks again. Thanks for everybody in attendance, and also for those of you that are watching this, the recording. And we'll see you next week in the Ask Me Anything DA. Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.